At 82, I've gathered a wealth of life lessons, but my biggest regret has to be moving into a nursing home. At the time, it felt like the right choice. My family reassured me that I'd get all the care and comfort I could ever need. I took their word for it, but the reality turned out to be far from what I had envisioned. If you're thinking about this option for yourself or a loved one, believing it's the safest route or that it will simplify life, I'd like to share 6 things I wish someone had told me beforehand. Life in a nursing home isn't just about convenience. It changes everything at its core. And once you're in, getting out isn't as easy as it seems. Stick with me until the end. Some of these insights might catch you off guard. And if you know someone who's contemplating a nursing home, this could be just what they need to hear before making such a significant decision. Regret number 1, losing my independence. The biggest shock for me wasn't just the small room, the set meal times, or the unfamiliar faces. It was the realization that I had lost control over my own life. Before I moved in, I had my routines. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could take walks whenever I felt like it, whip up my own meals, or curl up with a good book in my favorite chair. But once I was inside the nursing home, I quickly learned that my time was no longer mine. Everything was dictated by someone else's schedule. Breakfast was served at specific times, whether I was hungry or not. Lights out happened at a certain hour, regardless of whether I felt tired. Want to take a stroll outside? You need permission, and often have to wait until staff is available. Even the simplest decisions, like what to eat or what to wear, started to feel like luxuries instead of basic choices. I remember my first week waking up in a bed that didn't feel like mine, reaching for a book I had been reading, and then looking around at sterile walls and institutional furniture. All my books, my favorite chair, and the little comforts I had collected over the years were gone. The hardest part? Realizing that once you give up your independence, getting it back is nearly impossible. You adapt because you have to. You stop arguing about the menu, stop asking for walks, and learn to fit into their system. But in that process, you start to lose a piece of yourself. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to let go of the small freedoms that make life truly yours? Once they're gone, you'll miss them more than you ever thought possible. Regret number 2, feeling forgotten. One of the hardest truths about nursing homes is coming to terms with the fact that life outside keeps moving on without you. When I first arrived, my family promised they'd visit often. At first, they really did. My daughter would come by every week, and my grandchildren would drop in on weekends. For a while, I felt connected to my old life. But as the months rolled by, those visits started to dwindle. My daughter began to call instead of coming over, and my grandchildren got caught up with school and work. Holidays became particularly tough. Plans to visit often fell through at the last minute, leaving me alone in the common room, watching other residents gaze hopefully at the doors. It wasn't that my family didn't love me anymore. Life just got in the way. When you're not part of their daily routine, it's easy for people to think you're doing fine, that you're adjusting well, and that you don't need as much attention. But the longer you stay in a nursing home, the easier it is for others to forget just how much you still rely on them. I remember one evening sitting with my phone, torn about whether to call my son. I didn't want to feel like a burden or remind him that I was waiting for a visit that might never happen. So I put the phone down, and it struck me. This was my life now, watching the days go by, hoping someone would remember to include me. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're out of sight, it's surprisingly easy to become out of mind. Regret number 3, losing my sense of purpose. I thought I was simply changing my address, not the very reason I woke up each day. Back home, I had responsibilities, routines, and hobbies, little things that gave my life meaning. Even the simple act of watering plants, brewing coffee, or tidying up made me feel purposeful. But in the nursing home, those daily rituals vanished. Meals were served to me, cleaning was handled by the staff, and I no longer had plants to care for. At first, I convinced myself that it was a relief. No chores, just time to relax. But after a few weeks, I realized something crucial was missing. My days dragged on, empty and devoid of anything meaningful. I noticed the same in other residents. People who once brimmed with energy now spent their days just sitting, staring, and waiting for time to tick by. Ben, an 83-year-old former carpenter who had always been busy building and fixing things, now sat with his hands in his lap. "I feel useless," he admitted one day, and I completely understood where he was coming from. When you lose the things you care about or the goals you work towards, life starts to feel hollow. Your mind begins to slow down, your body follows suit, and before you know it, you're just another resident in a place where time passes, but nothing really changes. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, take a moment to reflect. What gives your life meaning? Because once you settle in, finding purpose isn't just about filling your time, it's about holding on to what makes you feel truly alive. Regret number 4, declining health, faster than expected. Before I moved in, I was doing pretty well for my age, not exactly running marathons, but I could take care of myself, enjoy walks, and whip up a meal. My little routines kept me on my feet, grocery shopping, morning stretches, and just moving around my home. But once I settled into the nursing home, everything shifted. At first, it felt like I was just taking a break. Meals were brought to me, and help was just a button away. What I didn't realize was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I started moving around less, and before long, my legs felt stiffer. I found myself sitting more than I ever had, and getting up from chairs turned into a struggle. The muscles I had worked hard to maintain seemed to vanish faster than I could have imagined. I wasn't the only one going through this. Folks who had walked in on their own soon found themselves relying on wheelchairs. Those who were once self-sufficient began needing help with even the simplest tasks. The more assistance we got, the more we seemed to depend on it. Take my neighbor Sierra, for instance. She's a vibrant 82-year-old who used to take daily walks when she first arrived. Gradually, she stopped walking, then needed a walker, and eventually a wheelchair. "I don't know when it happened," she confided, "but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." That sentiment resonated with me. When you stop using your body, you start losing its function. In a place designed to make everything easier, it's easy to forget that movement isn't just about convenience. It's about survival. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, I would have fought harder to stay active. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything around you is set up for ease? Once you slow down, getting back into the swing of things isn't as easy as it seems. Regret number 5, the loss of privacy and dignity. I never really thought about how much privacy I would have to give up. At home, I had my own space. I could shut my door, enjoy some peace and quiet, and live life on my own terms. But in a nursing home, privacy feels like a rare commodity. From the very first day, I felt like I was under constant scrutiny. Staff members coming in and out, scheduled room checks, and shared areas where finding a moment of solitude was nearly impossible. Even the simplest tasks, like getting dressed or using the bathroom, often required someone else's help. The staff were just doing their jobs, but it was tough to accept assistance for things I had always managed on my own. During that first week, I found myself struggling to ask for permission to do things I used to do without a second thought. Want to take a shower? You'll have to wait for someone to assist you. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes hitting the call button means an uncomfortable wait. Not a fan of today's meal? Too bad, you're stuck with it. And then there's the whole roommate situation. Not everyone gets a private room, and sharing space with someone you didn't choose can be quite a challenge. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but others weren't so fortunate. Some had roommates who were loud, messy, or had cognitive issues that made it impossible to get a good night's sleep. No matter how much you try to personalize your room, it never really feels like yours. Your dignity starts to fade when people knock but walk in before you can respond, when you're referred to as a patient instead of a person, and when your daily routine is dictated by someone else's schedule. You start to feel less like yourself and more like just another name on a list. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the privacy and control you've enjoyed your whole life? Once it's gone, getting it back is no easy feat. Regret number 6, realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first moved in, I kept telling myself it was just a temporary situation. I'd give it a shot and head back home if it didn't work out. What I didn't foresee was how tough it would be to actually leave. At first, it seemed straightforward. If I wasn't happy, I'd just go back home. But home was changing. It was sitting empty and becoming harder to take care of from afar. My kids even started selling things they thought I wouldn't need anymore, and they were even thinking about renting out the place. When I brought up the idea of returning, they hesitated. Are you sure you can handle it on your own? Wouldn't it be safer to stay here? We just want what's best for you. Then there was the physical decline that made things even trickier. After months of not cooking, cleaning, or moving around much, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. The independence I once took for granted started to fade, and the thought of living alone became scarier than I had anticipated. My confidence in being self-sufficient took a hit, and that fear kept me from making a move. I wasn't alone in this. Others shared similar stories. They thought they'd just try out life in a nursing home for a little while, only to find out that leaving wasn't as easy as they thought. The longer you stay, the tougher it gets to adjust back to life outside. Some even lost the chance to go back once their homes were sold or their savings were drained by care expenses. That's the thing nobody tells you. Moving in feels like a choice you can easily reverse, but for many, it's not. The nursing home slowly becomes your whole world, and your previous life starts to feel like a distant memory. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the possibility that once you're in, leaving might not be as simple as you think? The obstacles, whether financial, physical, or emotional, can be tougher than you expect. As I reflect on my journey, I can honestly say I don't regret getting older, but I do wish I hadn't thought that a nursing home was my only choice. I went in hoping for comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. What I found instead was the place that slowly took away my independence, privacy, purpose, and sense of who I am. Does that mean every nursing home is a bad option? Not at all. Some folks really do need that level of care. But before you make that leap, think carefully about what you might be giving up, because once you settle in, things will change forever. If I had the chance to do it all again, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, looked into more ways to get help without losing my freedom, and made sure I really needed to be there before committing to such a big change. If you're in a similar situation, I urge you to ask yourself, is this truly what's best for me, or is it just the easiest path right now? The life you have now, your routines, independence, and choices deserves to be cherished for as long as you can. Thank you for taking the time to hear my story. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep creating content that informs and inspires. I can't wait to see you in the next video.